Hi, this is David Kachoui, and welcome to NewXape. So let's look at the current desktop experience. We're all familiar with the blue screen with the icons on it. Sometimes we put photos on there or wallpapers to make it a little bit more interesting for ourselves. We also have the file managers. Windows Explorer is a great example of one that most of us have used. We either have a list of our folders and files that we navigate hierarchically. Maybe we have icons instead that we like to look at. That experience has not really changed that much over the last 15, 20, 25 years. So the question is, what if we could take something that has changed a lot, video games, and the experience has just continued to evolve and grow. And so imagine you're moving through a three-dimensional space and you're dropping off your files in places that are contextually relevant to you. Let's take an example. A generic example would be a house. So you want to get your recipes, you go to the kitchen. Maybe you have some recipes posted up on the refrigerator, you put some on the table, maybe you bind a few of your recipes together to create a cookbook, and you can put your cookbook out on the counter. It can be open, it can be closed up in the shelves somewhere. Your photos could be stored in your gallery. Maybe you have some of your favorite photos up on the wall. Other photos you put in photo albums. You put the photo albums either on your couch, on the floor, or up in the bookshelf. And it doesn't have to be a generic example. It could be a world that's very familiar to you. This example is from The Lord of the Rings. So if you look at this image and you imagine each location as a place that you could click on and zoom into, then it becomes a much more exciting experience than what we're doing right now. So imagine clicking on this room in this building, and you zoom in. There you are, and you have some files on the floors, some on the walls. Maybe there's furniture in there, and you can store them in some way. You also have staircases, so you can navigate up and down, similar to what we do when we navigate up and down the hierarchy of our folders. We did a survey, and the high school students were very, very interested in Harry Potter. That was one of the most popular worlds that we got from the survey. And this example is a good place where high schoolers might want to store their photos. And there's other ways that you can actually navigate through the world that we can take from video games. And one of them is through a car. So here we have a dashboard. You might have some links on the dashboard that they're sort of quick ways to jump to different places. And another thing you can kind of see in the image here is in-game advertising, which we would use as one of our revenue streams. One of the nice benefits would be that the advertising would be just as contextual as it is in video games, and video games are actually able to charge a higher premium over some other advertising because it makes sense in the world that you're in. We're used to seeing billboards, so when we see that in a video game, it doesn't jump out at us as being something annoying. The other advantage that we would have is that rather than being as static as they are in video games, the advertisements could be refreshed on an ongoing basis in the same way that we see on websites, so the content is always new and much more timely. The exit strategy would be to sell to a company who's looking to differentiate themselves in some way and extend their brand to something that's innovative and much more interesting on a design level. So barriers to entry that we're looking at are IP. The other is the network effect, and by that I mean that we're not actually going to be creating all of these worlds. What we want to do ultimately is create the design engine that designers and artists would use to create worlds of their own that they would then go to our website to sell. So we're calling these worlds landscapes, and our website would be what we call the scape store. So the other barrier to entry that we're looking to get would be some sort of exclusivity deals with content providers. So I mentioned earlier Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. If we could be get sort of exclusive licenses to use those brands in our worlds, then that would be an excellent barrier to entry. Positioning, we want to differentiate ourselves to the or help some sort of business differentiate themselves, and we want to help the end users better experience their own individuality or express themselves or spend more time in the worlds that make them feel good. So in the survey that I mentioned earlier for high school students, the top reason they gave why they would actually want this on their computer and they would pay money for it is that it's fun. Number 2 reason, because it's cool. So we're talking about 17 million high school students. 56% said they want it and they would pay money for it. Those high school students are quickly becoming college students, so we think by default, by focusing on high school students, we're actually doubling that number because we're also getting the those who are moving to college age. And it's not listed here, but middle schoolers, younger kids always want to do what the older kids are doing because they think it's cool. So on the behavioral side, what we found from the survey was that those people who were video gamers understood the concept right away, they understood its appeal right away, and they were more likely to want to use this on their own computer. So if we're looking at a market of 42 million, that's both the avid and the heavy video gamers. We think that by focusing on the US market initially, we're automatically going to be reaching the global market as well. So distribution would happen through the Scape store, as I mentioned earlier, and that's very similar to the Apple App Store or eBay. And what we would do is either charge a flat fee for any landscapes that are sold in our Scape store, or charge a percentage of anything that's sold there. And then we think it would be a big win if we could get PC manufacturers to offer these pre-installed on machines as well. So reaching the high school students, social media would be a very large part of our outreach campaign. If we can get any type of brand or promotional tie-ins, we think that would be a big win. So if we're talking about a new book, a new video game, movie, television shows, a good example for television show would be Lost. So you have multiple islands, you have underwater locations, you have underground locations, and each of those has some sort of an emotional meaning to the people who are using them, especially the big fans of the show. So when they drop their files and save their files, move their files, then there's something emotional about that we're really missing today. So once again, this is David Kachoui, and I hope you've enjoyed NewXape.